Severe flooding has swept across parts of Greece. After relentless heavy rainfall triggered sudden river overflow and widespread damage. Emergency services say entire neighbourhoods were inundated within minutes and storm-driven downpours struck the region on Thessaly, central Greece, and the parts of the Peloponnese. Local authorities report that the roads turned into Russian torrents, trapped residents in Corson homes, helicopters were destroyed to rescue families standing on the rooftops. We have not seen water rise to the fault indicates. By the brigade spokesman Nikos Alexiou, our teams are working non-stop to reach everyone in danger. In the town of Karditsa, one of the hardest hit era, businesses and a ground floor apartment were left under the more than the minutes and the muddy water. Farmers fear catastrophic losses after fields were completely submerged, with the yearly estimated suggested millions of euros in group damage. Meteorologists said the flooding was fueled by the stationary thunderstorm system. Pollen made sure that the Aegean Sea downpour rainfall levels are usually seen over the entire month in just few hours. Residents warn that extreme weather patterns in Greece are becoming more frequent, linking them to border climate shift across the Mediterranean. Residents affected by the storm described scenes of chaos, everything happening now quickly. The power went out and water was already in the waste. The Greek government has declared a state of emergency in the several municipalities and promises rapid financial assistance to households and farmers. Clean-up operations continue to authority warn that more rainfall is possible in the coming days, raising fears to further landslides and river swelling. Greece is grappling with the severe flooding after a powerful storm system unleashed an hour of relentless tropical-style rainfall across the multiple regions, triggering sudden rivers overflow, landslides, and widespread destruction. The hardest hit era included Thessaly, central Greece, and parts of Peloponnese. Emergency alerts were issued, entire towns disappeared bearing the rising water. Authorities say over 1,000 emergency calls were made within a few hours, with the firefighters rescue elderly residents, children, and standing drivers. The situation changing from calm on light theater in less than 10 minutes. In Karditsa, floodwaters surged through the narrow streets in a search for the pocket cars and they swept into spokespersons. Shops, fields, and workshops have been left destroyed, while thousands of homes remain without electricity. Farmers describe it a disaster, a crushing blow. The entire fields and cotton, corn, and a tree now sitting under the thick layer of mud. Meteorologists blame a slow-moving thunderstorm cell, fed by unusually warm sea temperatures in the Aegean. The system dumped a month's worth of rainfall in just 3 hours, overwhelming river banks and drainage system. Experts warn that extreme weather events in Greece are becoming stronger and more frequent, occurring similar paths across Europe. Schools were ordered to close. Authority urged residents to stay indoors. Witnesses described a terrifying scenes. It was like a river rushing down by our streets. Cars were flooding and shops' windows collapsing in a matter of minutes, said Joe Martinez, a shop owner in central Valencia. Farmers in the surrounding area reported catastrophic losses with its citrus grove and the rice fields devastation of the flood. Local authorities have declared a state of emergency, and the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez was pledged immediate assistance. The government stands with Valencia, will rebuild and support all families affected. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying. Extreme weather events in the Mediterranean were warnings increasing the risk in torrential rain and flash floods in Valencia. The storm has left a trail of destruction and urged questions about preparedness of the storm to come. Air traffic across Europe was disrupted, with hundreds of flights cancelled or diverted. Truck driver forced a dangerous motorway to ferry service across the North Sea were suspended. Meteorologists said the storm is a part of unusually active weather patterns that has swept across the continent and intensified due to the collisions of warm air masses with the cold Arctic front. We have seen storms and gathered intensify and unpredictability, which constitutes the climate change trend. As dawn broke, the full extent of the damage became more apparent. Europe leaders have promised to allocate emergency funds to aid in the recovery, but the many residents in the shock remain strong. One moment we were having dinner, and the next the roof was gone. Recall Italian Marco Bianchi and the essential Roman who is both here. A powerful storm swept across Europe, leaving a trail of destruction. Storm Spain to Germany, across and the offshore. It is one of the most destructive weather events of the continent in the last decade. In France, coastal towns in Brittany and Normandy were hit by winds up to 115 km/h, which tore roofs, houses, and forced ferry service to be cancelled. In Paris, sudden flooding inundated routes and led to closure to some section of the metro. It felt like the city was flooded in a matter of minutes, said passenger Julien Maroux when they through waist-deep water. Southern Germany, including Bavaria, reported hailstorms the size of a golf ball that smashed car windows and damaged crops. Authorities confirmed several injured, and insurance companies warned that damage in agriculture could run into tens of millions of euros. Spain and Italy also experienced chaos. The streets of Valencia turned into rivers after 100 mm of rainfall into 2 hours. In Sicily, passed a strong gust of winds and left thousands of people without electricity. The storm raged all night, recalled Sicilian resident Lucia Romano. We couldn't sleep, afraid that the roof might collapse. A series of powerful hailstorms swept across Europe, causing chaos, destruction, and dramatic scenes from Italy to Germany, France, and Croatia. The storm intensified the collision of the most Mediterranean air and the cold front moving from the north brought the Gulf-sized hailstorms. Strong winds and torrential rain disrupted transport, agriculture, and daily life in several countries. In northern Italy, the region in Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna were worst affected. A road turned wide and a hailstorm blanked crisis in a minute, smashed car wide shift, and destroyed vineyards art and groups. It sounded like a shot of the roof, say Marco Rossi, a resident of Bologna, describing the definite noise of a cave pounding its house. Meanwhile, in southern Germany, emergency service responded to hundreds of calls when powerful supercell storm hit Bavaria. Roofs were damaged, trees were uprooted, and train service were temporarily suspended. In Munich, trams and buses were suspended after the ice blocked tracks. We haven't seen such large hailstones in many years, said meteorologist Anna Weber of the German Meteorological Service. In France of the storm front caused chaos in a Rhode Alps region, where dramatic footage showed hail covering fields like snow. Uprooted trees and damaged power lines. It sounded like a fire train rushed through the city, saying Munich resident Johannes Keller, describing the terrifying moment when the storm hit. France faced severe coastal flooding, especially along the Atlantic coast. In a vortex, storm surge flooded streets with strong winds, small window, and overturned car. Local authority declared a state of emergency and urged cities to stay indoors. We haven't seen conditions like this in decades, say Major Alice Laurent. In Catalonia region of Spain, flash floods washed away cars and caused landslides in the modern era. Rail and air travel were disrupted and hundreds of flights across Europe cancelled. Meteorologist service confirmed that the storm area received more than 115 millimeters of rainfall in less of 24 hours. Experts warn of the weather in Europe is becoming increasingly unstable. Storm in this magnitude used to occur on every 20 years. Several metro lines, including lines 1, 4, and 13, experienced major distortion as the water swept in the station. Communities forced long delay with a rapid urgent residents to avoid necessary travel. Power outage left more than 25,000 homes in the dark, particularly in the Paris southern suburbs. The storm also damaged parts in the Eiffel Tower lighting system, forcing engineers to shut it off to safety inspirations. Lighting stuck near Notre Dame Cathedral, creating dramatic by the homeless flash captured by onlookers. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo urged calm, praising first response to the swift action. Our city was forced to severe weather before, but the intensity of the last night's storm show how climate change is amplifying these events, she said. We will assist all those affected. They struggled our flood resilience. Meteorologists described the storm as one of the most violent in decades as a result of a powerful Atlantic depression scalding with warm continental air from the northern France. Experts warn that such extreme weather events could become more frequent if Europe's climate continues to warm. By morning, Parisians emergency to survive the damaged streets, literally the branches flooded, cave terrace, and disrupted train schedule. Yet among aftermath were also relief. Clear skies returned the city resilient spirit shone through the once again. Major Boulevard from Camps Elias and Boulevard Saint Germain turning to Russian River, submerged vehicles including metro station. The Red B and Light 7 were partly suspended, water pouring on the tracks, while traffic ground and a half along the scene were rising water tethering the riverbanks and cafes. The water came like in a wave, said cafe owner Metre founder. Those small restaurant near multiple that flooded with a minute. People were screaming, chairs were flooding, it felt like a city was drawing. The Louvre Museum and Musée Oldray both activated flood protection protection barriers moving earthworks door and ground to the higher floors, a precaution not taken since the Great Flood of 2016. The E-left tower temporarily closed a light storm stuck nearly creating a surreal stain that thinly echoes across the darkened skyline. Authority reported no fatalities, though at least 14 people were rescued from submerged vehicles and several were treated to hypothermia. Emergency crew worked throughout the night and pumped water from the metro tunnels and cleared fallen trees that blocked roads in the 16th and 19th arrondissements. Europe, a powerful storm system has swept across large parts of the Europe, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and widespread disruption from Spain to Germany. Named Storm Isadora by meteorologists, the violent weather left a trail of chaos, flooding streets, uprooted trees and cutting power of hundreds and thousands of homes. In France, wind exceeded 113 km/h, battered the Atlantic coast, triggered roofs, rebuilding and forcing to temporarily close it to E-left tower due to safety risks. In Paris, emergency service reported over 500 calls overnight that fallen trees blocked major roads and debris littered the city. It felt like the city is breathing in chaos, said local resident Luca Mori. The wind was howling like a violent rain. Further south Spain, in Athens, a relentless downpour that triggered flash flooding in parts of Valencia and Barcelona. Submerged cars and flooded metro station. Emergency crew carried out multiple water rescue in resources as rainfall reached record-breaking levels, over 120 mm in 24 hours, according to the Spanish Meteorological Agency. Europe is rooted after the wave of powerful storms swept across the continent, bringing hurricane-force wind, torrential rain, hail and flooding from Spain to Poland. Authorities have confirmed dozens of fatalities and hundreds of injured, with hundreds of thousands of households remain without electricity. In France, Paris, in a hammered by heavy rain, is a lighting force to close up the metro lines and grounded flights to Charlotte the airport. Streets and line and borders turned into rivers. An emergency crew reported more than 5,000 clouds overnight. Germany also brought to breath with a tornado-like wind North Rhine-Westphalia, ripping roofs to homes and uprooted trees. Rail service were suspended, highway blocked, and the school closed to official urged residents to stay indoors. It felt like the sky exploded, said Jens Fischer, with so calls lifted to overturned by sudden gusts. In Italy, Venice and Milan were swamped by the flash floods, while the Rome enduring the violent hailstorm that shattered windows and damaged cars. Authorities warned to rising river levels in the north, in the fear of further flooding in the Po Valley. Spain forcing massive coastal swells and lightning storms, particularly in Barcelona and Valencia, where the Poland and Czech Republic struggled with the power cuts and transportation shutdowns after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days while thousands of travelers were stranded with the train station. Insurance provider estimates that the damage could reach billions of euros after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days with thousands of Mediterranean said the storm system was following the coastal line by Mediterranean air called Atlantic Front, creating a volatile chain reaction across Europe. Scientists the climate change is making such extreme wide-reaching weather events increasingly frequent. The Spanish Meteorological Service has declared a red alert for the eastern parts of the Valencia region due to heavy rain. Thursday, a repeat of the flooding that killed 235 people in the area last October. Spanish National Meteorological Service warned of extreme danger and a very difficult situation in Tarragona, Castellón and Valencia on a Sunday and Monday. On this warning was echoed Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. Citing of meteorological warning, Sánchez urged citizens to follow the instruction of the emergency service to all times. Local official announced that school and college, libraries and parks, as well as public space including gardens, markets and cemeteries would be closed in the Valencia on a Monday. Overnight rains caused local flooding and overflowing of Rio Aldea, one of the town hardest hit by October 2024 flooded that killed more than 213 people. No casualties have been reported. On a Sunday afternoon, residents of the city received a red weather alert on this phone. The flooding caused by heavy rains in October last year were exacerbated by the effect of climate change. As a warning atmosphere holds more water, climate change increasing the risk and intensity of the flood from extreme rainfall. Local residents stretched to a series of protests against for the believed this mismanagement of last year's crisis calamity. The regional offices did not warn in the time, despite the fact that meteorological service had issued warning. Zaragoza, the capital of Spain, Aragon region, was hit by catastrophic flooding after continuous rainfall caused the Ebro River in these tributaries and burst their banks. According to the official sources, more than 118 millimeters of rainfall in 36-hour a record for the last decade. Entire neighborhoods along the river were flooded, forcing hundreds of people to evacuate, and rescue teams used boats to reach residents who were trapped. Schools and businesses remained closed, and authorities converted the sports into temporary shelters for the families left homeless. At least 3 people were confirmed dead, and dozens of injured in the traffic incidents and building collapsing related for the floods. In the city center, cars floated along flooded boulevards, and underground parking lot and the sideway station were filled in water in a matter of minutes. Rail service in Aragon was suspended, and a highway connecting Zaragoza, Madrid, and Barcelona were closed after landslides buried sectors on the road. Local residents described the sense of apocalypse. In just half an hour, water poured into the streets like a river. We lost everything in the first floor, said Maria Lopez, whose family home in the Actor districts was flooded. Farmers across Aragon have also suffered devastation. Losers flooded wheat fields, vineyards and livestock found territory in malt and harvest and livelihood. The economic damage is already estimated of tens of millions of euros. Insurance companies are prepared for the wave of insurance claims. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has promised immediate aid and emergency support, stressing that the community will be left without help. Train service was suspended in several provinces, and dozens of flights were cancelled. He rerouted the Charles of Gaulle and Orly airport. In a Burdex vineyard, already vacated the wheat summer suffered for the damage, raising fears and a poor harvest. We have lost entire section of our vineyard, explained winemaker Claire Roseau. This is a devastation blow to our livelihood. And in French, entire minister deployed 3,500 firefighters, and the regional governor urged residents to stay indoors. 2 deaths have been confirmed, including the driver who was gassed and crushed in the fallen trees. Meteorologists said the storm was caused by the warm Atlantic air cooled in with a cold Arctic system, resulting in a strong wind. Such events are becoming more frequent in the intense, warned climatologist Dr. Jean Morel, linking the storm to changing climate conditions. President Emmanuel Macron experienced solidarity with the affected families, promising rapid assistance to fund the recovery. But for many residents, the night of destruction will not forget anytime soon. We had storms before, said local teacher Sophie Laurent from Naples, but never anything that shook to earth so much. Paris, France, the heat of European most iconic city through the interdisary as a violent overnight storm battered Paris and surrounding suburbs, leaving behind the trail of destruction rarely seen in modern times. The fire and tempest driven by the deep Atlantic pre-shoe system unleashed a torrential rainfall, differing thunder and hurricane-force winds, plunged parts of the capital in the darkness and the chaos. According to the meter of France, Paris endured record-breaking rainfall more than 16 millimeters in just 4 hours, flooding entire districts including said German Dispel, Baseline and Atlantic water. The city again drainage networks strategically to cope, tuning cobblestone streets into fast-moving rivers. It was terrifying, said Claire Depot, who lives near Jared Lion. Within minutes, water was knee-deep. Cars were flooding. The lighting was so bright it felt like drying for a second. Authorities reported over 1,800 emergency calls, with firefighters rescuing dozens trapped in the basements and underground car park. In Germany, the state of Bavaria and North Rhine-Westphalia were hit hard. Rice service were suspended in several regions after fallen trees damaged overlaid lines, with their schools remaining closed in precipitation. Dutch Brown warning passengers in significant delays in cancellation. Meteorologists attribute the extreme weather and deep Atlantic low-pressure system colding with the unstoppably warm continental air and volatile mix and intensified the storm power. Dr. Elena Richer from the European Climate Observatory stated, "We are witness more frequent and violent weather patterns to shift atmospheric circulated linking to climate change." The storm also caused coastal surge in Netherlands and Belgium. The authority reinforced and flood a barrier out along the vulnerable zone. In Amsterdam, channels overflowing, forcing evacuation in low-lying districts. Airports across Europe, including Frankfurt, Paris channels, and Madrid, Bercia, reported flight cancellation and diversions as tens of thousands of traveling overnight. Southern Germany has been hit by relating after a violent hailstorm battered Bavaria, shattered with windows, damaged rooftops, and leaving residents standing by the scale of destruction. The storm swept across the region with a little warning, unleashing hailstones the large of tennis balls. Streets in Munich, Augsburg, and surrounding towns were carpeted in ice, with the cars were left dented with white shifts smashed. It was like gunfire from the sky, said Klaus Richer, a resident of Augsburg. A hospital treated dozens of people to their cars, burst and hit injuries. Children and elderly were most affected, with the emergency responded rushing to provide shelter in a school and a sports hall in the rural area. The storm was equally devastated. Groups of Borzey, maize, and a vineyard across Bavaria were pumped, with farmers reported losses that could total tens of millions of euros. Transport ground to the Kiel, trains were delayed, the stock were blocked, fallen branches that the breeze were fighting for Munich airport were disrupted due to damaged aircraft and poor visibility. Height were torn hazards with a multiple accident caused the slippery and ice-covered roads. Tourists were also cut off in the chaos. Visitors to Neuschwanstein Castle and Bavaria, farmers Alpine village showed a dramatic image for the hail pelting up for the snowdrifts, with local accompanying the summer storm to the winter blizzards. Meteorologists explained that the hailstorm was triggered by unstoppable air masses, colliding the southern Germany, intensified by record summer heat. Climate experts warn the extreme hail events are becoming more frequent across the Europe, pressing homes, agriculture, and infrastructure under increasing threat. Communities across Europe are in shock after a series of rare and powerful tornadoes swept throughout the parts of Germany, France and Czech Republic, leaving widespread destruction in their wake. Authorities have confirmed numerous casualties and more than 200 injured, with the homes destroyed, cars overturned and power lines downed. Western Germany was the hardest hit by the powerful wind which swept throughout the residential area, poured down, injured dozens of people and damaged hundreds of buildings. Roofs were turned off, trees were uprooted and debris was scattered across highways. It was like a faint rain rushing throughout the city, said Catherine Miller, who took shelter in a basement with their family. In northern France, a tornado stuck near Calais overturned tracks on the A18 motorway and forcing several paths to close. Residents are decided chaos in the hail, lightning and stones wind battered cities already drenched in the heavy rain. The Czech Republic, still recent from the devastating tornado in 2021, reported another several storms in southern Bavaria, where homes and farms again destroyed it. Emergency services rushed to help stranded residents and volunteers working through the night to clear debris from narrow rural streets. Meteorologists say the tornadoes formed after the mass of hot Mediterranean air collided with a cold front moving from the Arctic, creating unstable conditions ideal to supercell storms. Experts warn that the climate change could make Europe more vulnerable to such rare but devastating events. Tornadoes were once considered almost impossible here, explained climatologist Dr. Helena Novak. Now they are becoming a dangerous new reality. The infrastructure of the three countries suffered serious damage. Rail service was suspended, tens of thousands of people were left without power due to power outage, and schools were closed to several regions. Insurance companies estimate the damage in the hundreds of millions of euros. Despite the devastation, there are stories of resilience. Neighbors farmed human change of cleared debris, firefighters rescued trapped families, and the shelters opened their doors to lose their homes. As Europe begins the long process of recovery, the tornado several stuck reminding that extreme weather is no longer confined to remote regions. It now processes to grow through to here to the continent. A sudden and severe hailstorm swept across southern Poland, leaving scene of destruction in its wake and prompted urgent calls to help. The storm, which struck on a Monday evening, battered town and villages with a hailstone the size of walnuts, smashing windows, damaged cars and destroyed crops in the middle of the harvest season. Farmers in the Motopolska and Podkarpatia region reported catastrophic losses. In the 10 minutes, everything he had worked in the year was destroyed, said Poret Novak, a farmer from the near Tarnow. The fields looked and someone had chopped them up with a knife. Agriculture representative estimated hundreds of hectares of corn, potatoes and orange have been destroyed, with the could lead higher food prices in the coming month. Residents described chaos and the hail-pounded roofs and a blanket drain caused sudden flooding in the city streets. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls, and a fire crews worked through the night and cleared debris and secured damaged homes. Fortunately, no deaths were reported, although several people suffered minor injuries from the broken glass. Local authorities are assessing the damage with estimated to be tens of millions of euros. The Polish Meteorological Institute was warned for the Celtic cold. More storms in the coming days are unstable weather continue to prevail in Central Europe. Climatologists note in the frequency of such extreme weather events increasing. Hailstorms of this intensity used to be a rare phenomenon, but climate change is affecting weather conditions across the continent, said Dr. Marta Zelinska and the climatologist of University of Warsaw. For many, recovery will be long and difficult. We will build everything, but it seems that nature is tasting other the more year, said resident Anna Kowalska, tended near the destroyed greenhouse. Spain is reeling after a violent storm swept through the large part of the country, bringing torrential rain, violent wind and sudden hailstorm that turned streets into river overnight. The region of Madrid, Valencia and Andalusia were among the hardest hit, as emergency service walked through the night and the rescue-stated residents to clear blocked roads. Meteorologists described the event as one of the most intense autumn storms in recent years. It will, the guest, exceeded 120 km/h in the capital areas. The Spanish weather agency issued red alert, warning cities to stay indoors where necessary travel. In Madrid, heavy flooding forced the closure of several metro stations and caused several traffic chaos. It was like a waterfall coming down the streets, said local resident Laura Gomez. Cars were flooding, trees were falling. It felt apocalyptic. In Valencia, firefighters reported the dozens of emergency calls and a flash flood inundated in low-lying neighbourhoods. Ile-de-France region, bringing hurricane force winds, torrential rain and intense lighting that lit up the Parisian skyline. When our iconic boulevards were transformed into rivers, metro stations were flooded and thousands were left without electricity. According to Meteo France, when the guest exceeded 120 km/h in parts of the capital with more than 16 mm of rainfall in just 3 hours, an amount normally seen over several weeks. The Seine River rose rapidly and water poured in unpressed to underground car park near the city center. I feel like the sky exploded, said Marie Larrier, a resident of Monterreal district. It was a thunder every few seconds, windows shaking and water gushing through the streets like a waterfall. Emergency service received over 1,200 calls during the night, rescuing driving trapped in submerged tunnels and responded to multiple reports of fallen trees. In the 15th arrondissement, the large earth collapsing out parked vehicles were parts of the Champs-Élysées were perilously closed due to debris. Several metro stations were forced to close after water cascaded down, stairways were portions of red line were suspended, at least 14 flights were delayed or diverted on Charles de Gaulle and Orly airports, and again about 114 km/h battered runway. The Elif Tower safety lights temporarily shut down due to the electrical surge in the 17th arrondissement section of scaffolding for the nearby structure, cities collapsing on the streets. Miraculously, no fatalities were reported. 35 people were injured, including 2 firefighters. Paris Major Ana Hidalgo called on an emergency meeting early Wednesday, urging calm to promises with restoration efforts. Our infrastructure, who pushed to the limits, she said. These events once again demonstrated the urgent need to climate adaptation in urban areas. Meteorologists described the storm as one of the most intense connective systems in decades, caused by the collisions in the humid Mediterranean air with a cold front swept in the Atlantic. This class generation as supercell system production extreme lighting activity to flash flooding across central France. Across social media, dramatic footage showed hail blanket sidewalks like a snow, bases standing in rising water and a lighting bolt taken near the Egg de Tourme. Rescue team working continuously through the night across the continent. In Nepal, an emergency service responded more than 2,000 calls relating to flooding in fallen trees. Schools were closed, highways were blocked, and thousands of people through the temporary shelters. Damage to agriculture is expected to be significant. Vineyard in France, olive grass in Italy, and through the field in Germany suffered heavy losses. Economy is estimated to total of cost damage of over 2 billion. Down broke to full extent of the destructive become apparent, buildings destroyed, cars stranded, and communities under the efforts were built.